Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to SBAM's Small Business Briefing. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Communications. And while our esteemed CEO, Brian Kelli, is joining our members at our new Lakeshore O2O region event today, I am joined by repeat host Kelli Saunders. Kelli, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm Kelli Saunders, Vice President of Policy and Engagement here at SBAM, and I believe this is my first time back in 2025. Brian has been holding it down, but yes, we're really excited about a new Lakeshore O2O region. If you are in the Lakeshore on the Muskegon Holland line looking for something to do this afternoon, it's not too late to show up. Feel free to go to our website, pop in, and we're excited to launch this new region. So, Sarah, I think we're going to welcome a new member before we get into our programming today.
Yes, we are. We are welcoming one of our new VIP members, Blue Wolf Concepts. So welcome to SBAM, to Blue Wolf Concepts and their team. And Kelli, we have a special guest who's joining us today, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, I am very excited today about our guest, not only because they are good partners of ours, but he is my former boss. And so today we have invited Dan Wyatt from the Edward Lowe Foundation to join us. So, Dan, welcome to the show. I know that you are a longtime listener of the Small Business Briefing.
Yeah, Sarah, Kelli, thanks. I am, and I appreciate being on with you guys today. Very excited about this.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Michigan Celebrate Small Business Initiative. But Dan, before we do that, you've been able to interact with numerous of our members. A lot of them have been to the foundation for certain programming. But why don't you say what your role is at the Edward Lowe Foundation and talk about the foundation a little bit and what you do down in Cassopolis?
Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity. Yeah, Dan Wyatt, president of the Edward Lowe Foundation. And, Edward Lowe invented kitty litter, Tidy Cat. He invented a product and created an industry. Today, it's over $1 billion. And he did a really neat thing. Ed left his estate to support entrepreneurship. And Kelli, as you know, we've worked together. Southwest Michigan, 2,000 acres, a beautiful piece of property. And what a legacy. Giving back. Ed always felt that entrepreneurs were under-recognized, undervalued, and he himself struggled at times. He called them brick walls. And so we just really love working with your members and entrepreneurs in Michigan to try to break down those brick walls. And so we have a number of programs, and that's what we do at the Edward Lowe Foundation.
Yeah, I was fortunate to work at the Edward Lowe Foundation before coming over to SBAM, and so loved being on the property down in Cassopolis. Love the support that's provided to entrepreneurs through the foundation. And Mr. Lowe definitely had a vision for lifting entrepreneurs up and connecting them, and obviously providing with programming. So we love working with your organization. And I will point out too, I love this Stormy Cromer in your background. Gina Thorson will be very happy today to see that piece of art behind you. So that's just exemplary, shows what kind of outreach that the foundation has specifically to entrepreneurs. So we give Gina a shout out today.
There you go.
But Dan, I want to jump into the Michigan Celebrate Small Business Initiative. Our organizations are a part of a collective, and we'll go over the advisory committee in a few minutes. But would love to hear a little bit of history on Michigan Celebrate Small Business. You've been a part of it for a long time. It's an initiative that's been around for about 20 years. So maybe talk a little bit about why Michigan Celebrates was created and what's
Yeah.
the mission behind it and why it was created.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's important for everybody to know. 21 years. This event's been around for 21 years. And 21 years ago, back then, Rob Fowler and Chris Holman and the Edward Lowe Foundation before me, a guy named Mark Lang, and the SBDCs, they had a small awards program, but not many people showed up. And this group of visionaries really sat in a room and said, we've got to do something to draw attention to the value and the importance and affirm the quality of work being done by Michigan small businesses. And so collectively, they created a program, Michigan Companies to Watch, 50 companies to watch. And so that's one. And two, they created an event that could showcase and then branded it, Michigan Celebrate Small Business. And it's grown significantly over those 21 years. what started out as a relatively, always was a good event at the Kellogg Center, Michigan State, moved over to the Lansing Center, and then now in the Breslin Center, up to 850 people a year. And it really is, I think, Michigan's premier showcase of small businesses. And who would have thought, I didn't, 21 years ago, every year we could identify another 50 companies to watch. And we have been able to do that. And now we have over 1,000 companies recognized over 21 years. And so I think I'll just say this about the event. It was created to celebrate small business, but it's gone beyond that. And, it affirms success and hard work. And I think it was a gathering place where small business could come and celebrate its impact and value to Michigan. And then we can talk about where SBAM's taking it. I think you guys have a whole nother vision about making it bigger and even better. And I couldn't be more excited about the future, but that's the history. And again, 21 years. Right now today, having worked in other states, I do believe it's the best recognition program in the country. Michigan celebrates small business.
Well, I agree, Dan. I've been involved with Michigan Celebrate Small Business myself for I think what seems like a decade now. And we were really intentional about growing our advisory committee because we knew that entrepreneurship comes in all sizes, shapes across our state, and not every region is the same. And so there were a couple of founding organizations, Lowe Foundation, SBAM, you mentioned the Small Business Development Center, and then we added a few more. The Michigan Black Business Alliance, the West Michigan Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the National Veterans Business Development Council, and then also the Michigan Rehabilitation Services, because we know entrepreneurship takes all sizes. And so our table got bigger, which means our nomination process got bigger. And then also, like you were saying, with the 50 companies to watch, we were able to have a wider breadth of what the entrepreneurial economy looks like in Michigan, which is exciting for us.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
so,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, Kelly, I really, because you guys are on the front end of this, and I think it's really important to everybody listening. And talk about the expansion of award categories and then roll into, your vision of how this two-day event is going to be bigger and better than anything we've done over the last 21 years.
Well, it sure is exciting. The Anchor Award, the 50 Companies to Watch Award, those are growth companies. They are on a high-speed chase, if you will, in order to get to the top. And so that 50 Companies to Watch Award is the brightest and best that is being offered in 2025 across Michigan. And the awardees this year are so exciting in that category. But as in past years, the Small Business Development Center has their Best in Small Business Awards, and that's been an anchor as well as a part of this program. And out of the 11 regions, they will also crown essentially their awardees in their respective regions. In the last few years, as you know, we've also identified a woman-owned business of the year, a minority-owned business of the year, and a veteran-owned business of the year. And that's really been held to one company in each category. There's been so many amazing businesses that have applied this year with us broadening that table that we've expanded those the award categories itself to include more than one because there's just no way to pick one. There's just so many great ones, which is exciting to see. But this year we added a category disability owned business of the year, and we have one awardee in that category. We're hoping to grow that over time as it catches on with awareness that it's a category that we offer. And then we also offered a micro business award category. Some of our smallest companies are our mightiest. And so we were really excited to see the nomination and the application process for that award category because it was one of our biggest and it's in its inaugural year. Yeah. So we're really excited to see these be expanded, to see the interest that has come into these categories. And so in total, we will recognize 90 companies on April 21st and 22nd. And that is what's so exciting about seeing this program grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about, all right. Here's what I think is neat. this 2-day event goes beyond the awardees. I mean, we really put a focus on the awardees the last 20 years, but I really think what you guys are contemplating is going to go beyond just those getting awards.
We really want to make Michigan Celebrate Small Business with our collective and our table the premier small business event of the year. And so while we were always proud of the events that came with Michigan Celebrates, a VIP reception the night before the gala, we offer a Capital Day experience in the morning on the day of the gala for the awardees, where they get to interact with policymakers and visit the Capitol. Some of them have not done that since they were in 3rd or 4th grade, respectively. And then the awards gala at the Breslin Center that evening, which is a true black tie, red carpet on the floor of the Breslin Center. Awesome experience where they get to feel celebrated. We talked about a conference piece, a true summit, where small business owners from across Michigan could come together and experience a 2-day event, whether they were an awardee or not, to be together with their fellow small business owners. We know the magic is created when small business owners have a forum to come together and spend time together. And so now on the 21st, we're going to offer a luncheon to kick off our day. And it's going to be legislators coming and hearing from small business owners on what's happening in their communities. So legislators are not talking at small business owners. Small business owners are given that forum to provide feedback to legislators on what's happening in their business so they can take that back to the Capitol and form policy that supports small business owners. In the afternoon, we're going to lead into a true exhibit and show floor where people can visit different vendors on how they can strengthen their small business. And also it provides an opportunity for people to connect on the floor. And then we're also going to offer breakout sessions with various different content in the afternoon on how to strengthen you as a leader, how to strengthen your team. And then in the evening, we will end with that VIP reception. So for people to truly network and get to know each other better, leading into the next day on the 22nd, where we'll have that Capital Day experience and also the awards gala. But our intention here is to celebrate our awardees in totality, but also to invite the small business community in as a whole so that we can truly celebrate together. And that's the exciting part of how Michigan Celebrates is growing. And this table we've created with the advisory committee and the sponsors that have come to the table in order to support this endeavor is what's the most exciting.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I just think it has so much potential. I think all of small business needs to show up and support this. It's affirmation, it's recognition, but it goes beyond that now to advocacy, and it goes to information networking, relationships. And it really will be, I believe, the premier small business event in the country.
Well, Dan, that's a ringing endorsement to me. And the reason why we asked you to come today is for both of us, our organizations, to invite everyone that's listening to come and join us on April 21st and 22nd. And I know Sarah dropped the details in the chat for everyone to see. But Dan, we couldn't be more grateful to have such an amazing partner in you at the Edward Lowe Foundation. Thanks for joining us today. And any final words that you have for our viewership before we let you go to do all your amazing work in entrepreneurship?
I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at Michigan Celebrate Small Business. See you guys there.
All right. Thanks, Dan. We appreciate your time today.
All
See you.
right. Yes. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Kelly. I know we're all very excited for Michigan Celebrates Small Business this year. So again, the URL, michigancelebrates.org. There is a big red button right there on the homepage that says register. And that will take you to all of the details about the 4 different events. And you can register for one or all. We vote all. Come to all of them and really be part of the whole 2 days. All right, Kelly, we have a lot of news left to cover. Let's start with our Election Watch 2026 update. What's the latest and greatest?
Yeah, I know Brian's been keeping track on all of this throughout the weeks and bringing you the different items of the day and who's running for Senate, the U.S. Senate seat that Gary Peters is vacating versus who's running for governor. And there was a pretty big announcement, well, silent announcement, if you will, in the form of the Secretary of State doesn't really allow you to make a grand announcement because you have to file your paperwork if you're going to run for governor. And so late last week, our friends, our reporters, they're very good at watching these things. announced that Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist had filed his paperwork to run for governor, and there was a tease of an announcement that was going to happen this week, a big announcement. And so there's been some, you know, not some intel, if you will, that he was thinking about this, whether he was going to run for Senate or run for governor. It's clear now that he's interested in running for governor. And so we'll watch for that announcement this week. Brian had mentioned, I think maybe even in January or February, that the Democratic Lieutenant Governors Association had said that if he was going to run for governor, they were willing to put in over $1 million in order to get him kickstarted, which is not an insignificant amount of money. And so for him to be able to enter a race and have some support like that is probably going to be necessary. There was an article over the weekend I found very interesting, and lieutenant governors don't necessarily do well when they run for governor after being lieutenant governor. It's just like a Michigan curse or something. I'm not sure. And so we'll have to see, does Garland Gilchrist break the mold on being a lieutenant governor that essentially makes it out of a Democratic primary and becomes governor or not? It's yet to be seen, but it does, set up a pretty interesting race between him and the current Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, that is seen as the front runner right now in that race. And taking Garland Gilchrist out of that U.S. Senate seat and now putting him here sets up a pretty, spicy, Democratic gubernatorial primary as people continue to get in the race. And then obviously we've talked about how Mayor Duggan of Detroit is running as an independent. So this race continually is shaping up to be very interesting, to be having some dicey primaries on both sides. And I'm sure that the field will continue to grow. But this is Election Watch 2026, what I'm reporting on today. So big announcement from Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist yet this week.
All right, thanks, Kelly. There's no shortage of news in this area lately, and it's only March of 2025.
Buckle up.
Buckle up is right. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Something we really haven't covered on the show recently, but we have talked about this before, especially with you, Kelly. And that's a policy area that we are involved in around childcare. And so last week, MiLEAP released a new report on a pilot program, and I'm hoping you can give us a little bit of an update.
Yeah, and forgive me if I'm clearing my throat a little bit. I'm getting over a cold, as Sarah knows from last week. So, one of our major policy issues is actually childcare. We know that if people do not have access to affordable, reliable childcare, whether you own a business or you're trying to make sure that your talent, your employees have that access, it's really hard to attract and retain talent in all different regions of our state. And so, yes, MiLEAP released a report last week, and it was in conjunction with the Early Childhood Investment Corporation, the Childcare Innovation Fund, MiLEAP, and then Talent First. All organizations that we've worked with in the past that have a high level and a high degree of reputability within, the respective space of childcare. And so we thought it would be really good to bring you this report. And Sarah, I think I provided the link to you. We could drop that in the chat too if people are interested in this. But it was called the Early Care and Education Wage Pilot Case Study. And there's some really good stuff in this respective report. It talks about that accessible and the affordable and high quality childcare being an essential piece of Michigan's employment and economic development infrastructure. We know that childcare is really central, and it's a detriment in whether a parent can pursue or even advance their career, because what we don't need is employers or employees worried about where their child is. Is it quality childcare? Is it reliable childcare? It is all very essential to have a robust childcare system so that people can function in a way that it doesn't make them worry about their families. And everyone wants that, whether you're an employer, an employee, whether you have a family or you don't. In order for people to feel like they can do the best job, they need to be confident that their children are being taken care of. And so while this isn't necessarily in business in the past, an issue that would have been taking root in the business community, what we have seen is that in order to have a workforce that is confident, that is growing, that sees a career, this needs to be at the focus. And so throughout this report, it just lays the groundwork on all the issues. We aren't able to retract and retain talent because we don't have a system set up in order to pay well within this industry for people to see a career path that is sustainable in a way of, we know that people who get into childcare have a real heart for it, right? They love kids. They want to make sure that it is affordable. They want to make sure that these kids are learning and that they are in a safe environment. However, you have to make a little bit of money. You can't go in the hole. And so how are we finding ways in a federal and a state way to support this endeavor and in this specific space so that not only is it not retracting, it's growing, and we know people can see a career path in it, and it's inspiring other people to maybe have dreams of their own to begin their own childcare centers. And so what this report really focused on were three different things. Invest in estate funds to establish a competitive compensation structure for the early care and education workforce. Continue the development of a comprehensive early care and education workforce strategy that establishes clear career pathways by aligning existing educational and training opportunities and funding. And then develop the tools Michigan needs to invest in the early care and education workforce efficiently. And so there were three purposes of this project. One, this is what I love too. It's really all encompassing, which is why this report was so encouraging. They're not just thinking about it in one lane, because my childcare providers that are on today, this is so near and dear to me too, because of the work I've done with the Women's Commission. We can't just focus on getting everyone into preschool. We need to allow parents to decide what's best for their children. Is it a center? Is it home-based? And so the number one purpose of the project was to engage home and center-based providers, business leaders, and subject matter experts in a task force that would advise the development of early care and education in the wage scale developed by Talent First and Head Start. Wonderful organizations that understand this space, very smart. Pilot the wage scale with 2 childcare centers in Michigan, so you actually have a base in order to be able to reflect on this. That includes the TriShare program, which we have supported the TriShare program in the past. Reminder that the TriShare program is like a three-pronged approach. The state pays a third, the parent pays a third, and then the business pays a third of the childcare bill in order to try and help people get. We just know that childcare is so expensive. It's another funding mechanism. And so taking that into account in this program. To conduct an evaluation of the project, including the experiences of the demonstration pilot participants. So how did they feel about engaging in this program, which is good. Feedback in real time is great. And then making sure that all these organizations work together in order to implement. And so I really feel like that this report is going to help move things along in trying to find solutions in childcare. While we've been supportive of the TriShare program, supportive of finding and creating ways to be more nimble when it comes to growing how childcare centers are set up, when it comes to licensing and the rules surrounding regulatory environment when it comes to childcare. We know that these spaces have to have a lot of rules and regulations so that kids are safe, but maybe we're not quite doing it right, because if people are experiencing barriers to setting up childcare centers, where are those bumps and how can we work better together to make sure that it is a career path if someone chooses to go down this road that doesn't feel arduous and really is accessible. But then also just seeing these organizations come together, whether it's business, childcare focused, talent and retention, which is what Talent First focuses on, seeing this all work together to assess the system and find new ways to move forward is a wonderful thing to see. And so I really think that what we're going to see in this legislature specifically, where now we have divided government, everyone cares about childcare. They understand it's a problem. And so this might be a really good bipartisan thing to work on as we head into the next 2 years to tackle a problem that affects everyone.
Yes, indeed, Kelly. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit of that insight. I did share the link to the report in the chat, so you can check it out for yourselves. All right, let's switch over to what's going on in the legislature. The House took some action last week on potential budget issues, and it was a little bit dramatic.
It got a little spicy. It did last week. We've seen some interesting dynamics occur, and Brian's talked about it in the first, 2 months of the year, we'll say 2 months and a couple weeks. Um, you know, Matt Hall's been a champion for business when it comes to ESTA, and we've seen his ability to work with the governor and find ways to work with certain Senate Democrats in order to get things over the finish line. And there were a couple, functionary things that needed to happen. The close of books for the previous budget year needs to be handled. And I think what the speaker is trying to do with what happened last week is to set the stage that instead of trying to pass, an $80 billion plus budget, is to really look at the budget and see where cuts can occur, in order to make sure that we're using our money in an effective way. And no one is saying that the Democrats are not trying to do the same. It's just that I think that this is a flex a little bit in order to really come to the negotiation table, because I think Brian's talked about this before, but the Republicans unveiled a road plan this past week on how to fund our roads. The governor put out a roads plan that was a little bit more loose in the way that it was presented. It was some ideas on how we could potentially fund the roads. And so I think what the speaker is trying to do is to say, I don't want to get stalled by negotiation tactics of using the roads against education, vice versa. So what we're going to do is we're going to close out the books by passing a budget that does that, but we're also going to put in place funding that is a precautionary to prevent a budget shutdown by funding schools, local governments, essential services, if you will, so people can continue on. If you recall, the normal cadence of a budget is in the spring. They would set some targets in both the House, the Senate, and the governor and work towards negotiation and finding common ground so that they can get a budget to the governor by July 1st to sign, because they really don't want schools and local governments to try and guess the funding that they're getting prior to the actual budget year happening on October 1st. And so what we've seen in divided government, of course, is that there's a little banter back and forth and what's important and what's not. And so what basically happened in the House last week was the House Republicans unveiled a budget to cover those essential services and close out the books. And what the Democrats are saying is that that the speaker is hinting towards a potential government shutdown by not getting that budget done by this maneuver. So the House did pass pretty much along party lines, except for one other Democrat voting with the Republicans to send that proposal on essential services and closing out of the books to the Senate. Now, I highly doubt the Senate runs that. And so again, as we see budgets come to light, there's going to be a lot of negotiation that happens. It might be a little bit more public than it's been in the last 2 years, but we want you to know that none of this is final. There's going to be a lot of discussions, but it was a pretty swift move by the speaker last week to start budget talks maybe a little bit sooner, and ways to find to work together in order to move forward quicker. But to also put the right priorities and focus for everyone. I think that's the page that they're on. So we will see what happens. Jacob and I will be watching quite closely, and so will Brian, in order to bring that news to you. But that's what happened last week in the legislature. We'll see what this week brings.
Well, and I think it's a good reminder too that you see a lot of headlines. And we're always here to kind of help you understand what those mean. So tune into the briefing and receive our Watchdog newsletter that goes out on Tuesdays too for a little bit more insight, just to kind of keep you up to date on what's really happening.
So, Sarah, as we close out our show, I'm going to turn to you because we obviously had some big news with the Corporate Transparency Act last week where we won, and it was great. But we've had some really important communications with our members. And so maybe could you just give a brief overview and what to watch for, maybe to look for that email that we sent late last week, because it is important for our members to know.
Yes, absolutely. So I think last Monday we were kind of fresh off of our victory in that lawsuit regarding the enforcement of the Corporate Transparency Act, which was very exciting. And Brian mentioned that, yes, we were victorious in our efforts. And around the same time, the IRS had also issued some new guidance about the CTA, essentially making this filing unnecessary for most businesses right now. But we want to underscore that the same process being used to scale it back today could be used in the future to expand it, these executive orders. So that's what really makes our court decision kind of critical to prevent the future administrations from broadening the enforcement. But what we sent to you on Friday, so if you are a member of SBAM and you are a member as of March 3rd, we sent you an email actually last Thursday afternoon, and it talks about the judgment issued. And I'm going to read it directly to you, and I want you to go find that email if you don't have it, because there is a PDF document that we provided you, a copy of this judgment that is yours as essentially a plaintiff in the case. But it says, based on the order entered today, judgment enters in favor of plaintiffs and against defendants, declaring the reporting requirements of the CTA a violation of the Fourth Amendment prohibition against unreasonable searches. And two, relieves plaintiffs and their members, so that's SBAM members, of any obligation to comply with the reporting requirements of the CTA, and permanently enjoining defendants from enforcing any of the CTA's reporting requirements against the plaintiffs and their members, and from using or disclosing any information already provided by the plaintiffs and their members. So if you did file, it would, prohibit them from using any of your information going forward. So again, that email was sent to you last Thursday, late afternoon. It does have a copy of that judgment. And it also contains a video message of Brian and one of our litigators from Miller Johnson, kind of going over what this really means. So if you can't find that email, you can send us a note, sbam@sbam.org, and I'll make sure you get it. But again, that's all we have left for now on the CTA. Who knows what'll happen in the future? But yeah, that's the update there, Kelly.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, everybody. If you're an SBAM member, we just felt like that was really pertinent news. So make sure you look for that in your email and just print out a copy and keep it on hand. We're really hopeful the IRS doesn't show up at your door, but if you do, you're protected. So make sure you have that. So thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
Have a great week, everyone.